Okay, there we go. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the board for being here this morning. I just wanted to give you a financial update. As you recall, we did have a reduction in force due to a program change, and I was going to let you know kind of where we stood this morning here. Okay, I'm clicking. I'll do it. We'll try this one. Perfect. Once again, just reviewing what our current challenges are is retain our legacy of excellence, of course. Teacher staff retention, recruitment, and support. We are, just so that you're aware, we are doing some huddles and some personal meetings, some stay interviews with teachers right now, and that has been very positively impacted due to some of the changes that you have all made. So we're pretty excited about those. And then, of course, another current challenge is responding to our funding challenges there. Our strategic plan did say that we would develop and implement, staffing efficiencies. That's, of course, what we always want to do when we are looking at taxpayers' monies and just the financial responsibility of the district. And so that, of course, is in our financial sustainability plan there. We have taken lots of actions this past year, trying to support those three challenges that we talked about at the very beginning. We're still continuing to looking at master scheduling options as far as campus master scheduling, reviewing those. In fact, we met last Friday, reviewing those, reviewing department responsibilities, making sure we're as efficient as we can, assigning responsibilities, and we have done some of that. Once again, continuing, or we just finished zero-based budgeting, going through there, and of course, looking at attrition. If we have, when we're reviewing course scheduling and course requests, and of course also if enrollment at maybe some of those younger ages, but reviewing all those types of things is what we're continuing to do as we move into spring. This is my push, also open enrollment. So if you haven't enrolled your kindergartner, please do that so we can make sure that we have teachers in there to staff those, so because we're reviewing that. Of course, also this is what has years in the past, what our total staff has looked like. And you can see for 22, 23, we're at the lowest point with 530 employees at this time. And most of those were done through attrition this past year there. Did want to talk about, as you did approve a RIF and due to a program change, and we are looking, as I said, through staffing efficiencies and doing what we can to continue to support that legacy of excellence on our campuses, but also looking at those responsibilities of everyone that's employed in Lovejoy ISD. We definitely went through the policy as we looked at program change and looked at those positions that would be impacted. We of course also always look at the qualifications, what our requirements are, current certifications, those types of things. We looked at performance effectiveness too, the extra duties, professional background, and seniority. So we went through every one of those steps to identify those people that would be impacted. So we were pretty thorough in those, just looking at those that would meet the first criteria. Then you don't go to the second one, and you just advance through those in that specific order. So wanted to make sure that you're aware that we did follow those. We did follow those there. We also want to make sure that any position that was identified, they do get priority hiring in those positions. And we have posted most of those positions, and I'll share those positions that were posted for. And we have reached out to them, encouraged them to apply for those open positions. We want them to be part of our staff, and we hope that they will continue to do so. And all they have to do is apply. And we've had, actually, we've been able to reassign one of those positions there. Of course, the programs that were impacted was our special education executive director position. Our current person has resigned because we're changing that to a director position, but the current person in that position has resigned. Fine arts, the district fine arts director position was another one. We have not received a resignation on that position yet. We also, as far as the Willow Springs choir teacher, that is another position that that person did also resign, and we have opened up and posted a position because that would be a shared position from Sloan Creek to Willow Springs, which also would make it much more efficient there. Athletics, a full-time wrestling coach, that also that position, that person has resigned, and we're encouraging him also to we're looking at his teaching certifications and see if there's some other positions he can apply for. And of course, we would still have a wrestling coach. It would just be a second sport. So they would still, all kids, no opportunities for students would change in that wrestling programs there. Counseling, we were able to do a reassignment. We had one of the Sloan Creek counselors resigned, so we were able to move the second one into that position, so they will be coming back next year. In fact, that is why I have on the agenda today recommending for you to approve a contract. It's that position right there, so we can go ahead and get her a contract so she knows that she'll be coming back next year. Curriculum instructional coach, that person resigned also, that position, and we have posted 2 MTSS positions to support campuses both at Hart and at Puster, so that was a program change there. Physical therapist part-time, that person also resigned and we have reposted. And of course, our dyslexia therapist, we need a full-time person, and that person has resigned and we have reposted that position too. So just kind of wanted to give you an update there. Right now, we're on the resignations we have, we're a little bit over 200,000 in financial gain from those resignations. Of course, we still have one where we have not received a resignation there, so we're impacting some more there. As far as we're still looking at all options concerning staff. We're looking, can we redistribute some of the responsibilities and duties of others? We're also looking at to continue to come to a resolution for some of those positions. As we look at some of those positions that are currently posted, we may need to change a little bit and change some of the duties and options there depending on the current staff that we have or the recommendations going forward. As I said, we're still continuing to look at all of those and examine financially what we need to do in order to get to that $300,000 savings like we were hoping to get to, so we can have some of these other programs for students to occur and opportunities. But we are still also looking for staff there and some of those outcomes with duties, okay, as we look for resolution and discussing resolution and some things that we can do financially to that may need to occur so we can have those other opportunities for kiddos there. Okay. I had put on the next slide, I had put a recommendation for reduction in force. At this time, I'm actually not ready to make a recommendation there. I would like us to continue and go back and work some more with some of our staff and determine what that resolution may be. So administration's not making a recommendation at this time there.
That carries into item 7, which is, so
Correct.
Item 6 was your presentation.
Correct.
Item 7 is anything we discussed in closed session, which is published on the agenda. And so I think what we don't want to do is rush things and affect student opportunity, right? So we can be generous with our time and give a little more time for that to settle out.
To work through, yes.
Right, so item 7, we'll take no action there today.
Correct. I'm not recommending an action here.
All right.
Any other questions from the board?
It's not really being tabled. It's just consider and take possible action regarding any closed session items. It's a placeholder if we need to take action. So there's nothing to table. We're going to take no action there today.
Right. And of course, if we don't come to a resolution, that could possibly be put on a future at a board meeting, but you would know that on the agenda ahead of time. Okay.
All right. Item 8, consider and act on employment agreements and Chapter 21 contract recommendations.
Yes, that of course is the counselor at Sloan Creek, the one that was actually RIF due to program change that we want to give them a contract because we have a position for them to go into. So that is that contract recommendation there that I am recommending there. And so we will definitely put that person, upload that list or that one name for tomorrow. And of course we're doing our second round of contracts and employment agreements on April 24th also.
All right. I would, any questions for Anna? If not, I would consider a motion. So moved. Julie McLaughlin. Second, Marvin Bobo. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Thank you.
All right, item 9, consider and act on a budget amendment. Mr. Willman, I'm sorry,
Yes, sir.
Thomas.
No worries. Good morning, President Owen and Board of Trustees and Mrs. Cordell. Today we have budget amendment number 4. Within this budget amendment, the changes from the last time we presented, there's a few items that are more of a wash overall, just moving dollars between the different functional areas. The main changes from the previous month. One, as we continue to work towards closing out the year and prepare for our audit, we did notice that we had our school marshals that were still charged to our overall budget, which was covered through the foundation grant. So we moved some of those dollars over that improved our overall outcome. And then the second item, we are concerned about the current legislative session and the financial implications to the financial implications of the legislative session. So we are looking to engage with Hillco partners. So we're increasing our administrative lobbying cost by $16,800. So with that being said, the administration recommends approval of budget amendment number 4 for the general operating fund by the Board of Trustees.
Thank you, Mr. Willman. Any questions, Board, about that?
I'm sorry. Yes, 18.6. Thank you.
I just want to say I think it's a good idea considering the state of things, and we're probably looking at a special session. For those that were here during all the ASATAR, we had a lobbyist at that time, and I think that helped us recoup some of that money. Amy, you can attest to that. You were on the board then. So I think it's a really smart recommendation. So thank you.
The amount of legislation that's being proposed and the detrimental effect on not only Lovejoy, but public education is incredible, just from my perspective. And so I think given what we have to protect what we have going, one, and to hopefully become more proactive in the future, we need to invest in this arena. And it needs to be a fundamental piece of what we're doing. I didn't always understand that in this role, but it definitely is clear to me now that we need to be out working. And I think we need people doing it that do it as a matter of their course of business on a daily basis, beyond what we're capable of doing as board members. And this is a good way to, I think, fill that void, that space that needs to be filled to hopefully affect a positive outcome for us, both financially and for public education as a whole. So certainly we're working on behalf of Lovejoy here at Lovejoy, but these matters are all somewhat consistent among school districts, especially in our size. So.
Yeah, I just want to echo and agree with those points. I think, several board members will be down in Austin tomorrow, shaking hands and trying to make sure that we are advocating for Lovejoy ISD the best we can. But with 1,300 public education bills, and the majority of which really have significant impact on our financial outlook, our one day in Austin is not going to give us the results that we need. The mountain is too high and the stakes are too large for the district. And so I think this is a place where we make an investment to preserve the programs that we have.
If there are no other comments, I consider a motion on the budget to approve the budget amendment.
I move we approve the budget amendment as presented.
So moved. So moved, Ann Smith. Second, Jason Chains. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Item 10, presentation on STAR end of course test and A through F accountability system update.
Good morning. Wanted to get in front of you some changes that the agency is going to be putting in place for the 23-24 school year regarding the accountability systems A through F that we are going to, it could impact some of our ratings. And so we wanted to have that in front of you, and we'll be sharing this out with our our staff this through our team huddles that are starting today, and also some reporting changes for our start and end of course that our parents and our teachers are accustomed to receiving those scores a little sooner than what they are going to be provided for the testing that's going on this spring. So I've asked Mary Mullen to join me. Where's Mary? She's coming up over there. As you know, Mary is our Director of Secondary Education and Assessment and Accountability. So a big piece of the work that she does is attend updates, trainings, all of the changes that are going on, and keeps our district abreast of the impact that it can have on our students and our rankings. So she's going to do the majority of this presentation, and she is more the expert in this probably than anybody in this district. It's very impressive the work that she's done and some projections that she's even brought forward considering our past performance as well too. So Mary, I'm going to let you take it from here and I'll work the slideshow.
Thank you. Okay, as Dr. Tinsley mentioned, we are accustomed to getting back our STAR results beginning of June-ish, end of May, but because of the recent STAR redesign, do you remember back earlier this year, we had presented to you that the test has been like an overhaul with different types of questions were added. All of assessments would be taken online this year. So there's a lot of different things going on with the components of the assessment and the formatting. Additionally, because of that, there will be a new standard setting process that the state has put in place. TA wants to ensure that all performance standards continue to accurately represent what our students know and can do. So what the commissioner has done is has put in place a committee of educators from across the state to get together to review and also provide feedback on the cut scores and the results. So this is going to take place over the spring and the summer. So again, that pushes the scores out a little bit. And instead, if you would click one more time, thank you. Instead of getting the results in June, our EOC final results will come the end of June, and that's for Algebra 1, English 1 and 2, and Biology and US History. Those are our EOCs. And for grades 3 through 8, we will not get final results until August the 16th. These dates, June 30th and August 16th, will be the dates when the results are available in the new parent portal that's accessible on the state website. The second thing that's going on in the state is an accountability refresh to the A through F system. And what I am going to present to you is all still in proposal. Nothing is final until the final accountability manual comes out, which will be close to the fall, but I'll get to that. So the purpose of the refresh is A through F is important to our Texas students. And what the state means by that is the A through F system was put in place by House Bill 22 back in 2017. And the purpose of the A through F accountability system is really to continuously improve the students' performance with the goals of closing achievement gaps and also to improve our post-secondary success. So kind of keep that in mind as I move through this presentation. Those are the biggies. To also improve transparency and meaningful information for our parents. So they want to provide reliable and valid measures for student outcomes. And then finally, previously before A through F system was in place, every year the rules would change a bit. So districts really didn't know how to compare year over year and to look at whether improvement was taking place. So those are all the positives of the A through F system. Up on the screen now you'll see the timeline. You'll see this refresh started way back on July 2019 and through May 22, they have been producing frameworks, pushing them out, asking for feedback from stakeholders, pushing out another framework, asking for feedback, and finally now on March 9th, we got what we're hoping is the last proposal of a framework for the refresh. And you'll see from the timeline there that once it should be anytime now up until the beginning of May, we get the proposal for the accountability manual. That should be coming out. And then of course, they will be asking for feedback on that manual. And the final manual should be published sometime in August. And there on September, you'll see on the timeline that we are not expecting district ratings to come out until September. Okay? So everything has been pushed out quite a bit. And you can't figure out the star scores until the accountability manual's in place that provides the cut scores and the scaling. All makes sense. So with accountability, there are 3 separate domains. The first domain is student achievement. This student achievement domain is sometimes referred to as the performance domain. And for the most part, grades 3 through 8, how the students will be scored hasn't changed at all. Our big changes come with the high schools. The graduation rate and the CCM scaling has changed quite a bit. On this side, you'll see the scaling for graduation. They have upped it 2% in order to scale to an A. So 18 through 22 districts had to achieve a 96% graduation rate. Now in 23, they bumped it up to a 98%. This is one thing that really won't affect us too much because we typically have 100, we've had for the last 3 years, for sure, off the top of my head, 100% graduating. So
And I might add to that, Mary, the high school starts identifying students that might be in danger of not graduating very early on. So there are measures and supports put in place to help our students meet that goal.
So if you click, the major change in this domain is for CCMR. So remember when I said that the focus of this refresh is all about increasing our students' post-secondary success. So the state has decided that in the past, scaling at a 60 would get you an A. Now they have pushed scaling to a score of 88 to get an A. That's a huge, huge jump. Fortunately, again, our CCMR percentage last year was 95%, which scaled to a 99. So we've done fine in this area. And our prediction is that we'll continue to do fine in this area because if you look at our history, we've been at 97, 96, 90, right in there in the upper 90s.
And Lovejoy joined a coalition of some area districts that sent a letter to the commissioner with concerns about the significance of this change that was going to have on ratings of districts. Pretty much the response we got from the commissioner was the recommendations moving forward. But there has been concern and talk about this throughout the year. And as I said, a letter was written to the commissioner with the concerns.
Okay, so those are the components of Domain 1. Domain 2 is referred to as the school progress domain. And it has everything to do with academic growth. The big changes here, if you don't mind clicking one more time, is they have provided these, what they're calling transition tables. And I don't know if you can see it from there, but they have, the state has decided that to essentially provide a low and a high indicator for did not meet, where in the past it's just you did not meet. Now they're scaling that to be either you did not meet low or did not meet high. And again, for approaching, they have divided that into a low and a high, and it's approaching low and approaching high. with that new scaling, districts have a possibility of receiving more growth points because on this table, you'll see that if a student scored last year and it did not meet low and they moved to did not meet high, there is a percentage point that can be gained. So it shows a little bit more growth there than in the past. The second thing in this domain that they've added is House Bill 4545 performance. This is another transition table, and they are essentially awarding districts bonus points, if you want to put it that way. Any 4545 student that passes this next year on their exam at any level, districts will receive bonus points for that in this domain.
Mary, can you remind the board about the House Bill 4545 and the impact it's had on students and teachers and the number of hours for the intervention?
Sure. Any student last year that did not pass a STAR exam were required to receive 30 hours of additional tutoring or intervention that could be done before or after school or embedded somehow throughout the school year. It is difficult sometimes to get those 30 hours in, especially if a student fails more than one exam. It's tough on the teachers, it's tough on the students too, because after a long day at school, to have to put in additional hours at the end or even come in early to get those hours in, it's very hard. So that is something that our teachers and campuses have taken head on and done a great job with our students.
And there is some legislation to make some modifications to that. I think I'm not sure if it's in House Bill 2526, but of reducing the required number of hours as well.
Okay. The last one is domain 3, and it's known as the Closing the Gaps domain. And this is the domain that we've seen the largest proposals for changes. I have listed here the 3 big ones. The state has decided that to get a better idea of how schools are performing, to provide different targets for each school type. So for performance, the target to hit will be different in elementary than in a middle school than in a high school. And that's only right because if you do look at passing scores or cutoff scores for the different approaches and needs and masters, they're different for each course and grade level. So this change is a good change to see in this area. The second one is also, I think, a good change because instead of campuses receiving, yes, you met the target or no, you didn't, they will be receiving like a rubric score of 0 to 4 to say just how well you met the target. And the last one is the biggest change. And if you would, there you go. So in the past, the state has looked at 14 different student groups to identify how they performed, and those are listed on your left there. For 2023, districts will be only, or the state will be looking at 4 different groups. All of them, all students is one of the will be one of the groups that the state considers. And then out of the racial and ethnic groups that are listed there, African American, Hispanic, white, American Indian, Asian, Pacific Islander, and 2 or more races, districts will determine using 2022 data what their 2 lowest performing groups are. And so that'll make up group 2 and 3. And then last will be your high focus group. The high, if you would click one more time, the high focus group is the group of students that, actually, will you go back? I'm sorry. Right under 2 or more races on the left-hand side, you'll see a list of 6 different groups. Those will now become one high focus group instead of having a separate indicator for each one of those groups. And the purpose for this change is because we had students counting like 2 or 3 or sometimes even 4 times in a group. there's a possibility a student could count in every one of these high focus groups. So we're counting students over and over and over on their performance. Instead of that, they've decided to make this high focus group be one group and one percentage. And then from the racial and race and ethnicity group, you pick your two lowest, and it's different for each campus. And we'll be determining that looking only at math and reading from 2022. And that's work that we will be doing with the principals and this slide just more or less says what I already said, except for the last two bullet points. I'm going to point out, besides moving from 14 subgroups to 4, they have, the state has also decreased the minimum size. Prior to this spring, we have always looked to student group size of 25 or more. Starting this spring, it's 10 or more, which is huge for small school districts and, of course, Lovejoy. So any group that has at least 10 or more students in it will count for accountability. And that's closing the gaps. The last one I have to report is how districts will be rated now this spring. It's much different because in the past, all 5 of our campuses, we have, for each domain, we figure out how they scored, divided by 5, that's our score. They have come up with this proportionality rating and different weightings based on enrollment on the fall snapshot. So what I have listed here is what enrollment was back in October. And you take total number of students and divide that into the number of students on each campus, and you get the percentage. So both Hart and Custer, they will, out of 100%, their proportion will be 8.2, and so on.
Mary, can you elaborate a little bit more on the impact this will have when you look at the proportional weight of the ratings?
Actually, when you look at our data singly, for instance, Domain 1, all of our campuses scored in performance about the same, like 94 and 95. And because they're so close, it's not going to have a huge impact. The only place where we have to be just a little bit careful would be in that high focus group because it's so new. We can't make a prediction on what that might be. We can get pretty close with the other domains because they haven't changed so much, that this closing the gaps domain, because of the change in what groups will be counted and the creation of this one high focus group, that's a little bit harder to predict. And I was actually even advised by our consultant to don't try to do that, Mary, because it might be off just more, and you don't want to go one way or another.
It sounds like
the reason for this change is because not so much in our school district, but other school districts, there would be maybe 10 elementary campuses that received a score of a C or a D, and then their middle schools maybe did better and got Bs and As. And when they all count the same, then you have your high performing campuses really bringing up and making up for the bad performance of, or the lower performance, I should say, on the other campuses. So the state wasn't getting a true read of what the district was, how the district was really performing.
Mary, it sounds like overall this could give us better information. Is that your take?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. All of it, like I said in the beginning, the purpose of the refresh is to close the gaps of the subgroups, and that's what we are really focusing in on, the lowest performing groups. And the second is to increase the success of post-secondary, and that's the change with the CCMR. Those are biggest changes.
And I think the biggest concern we had was the jump from the 66 to the 80 or
88.
88,
yeah,
60
from
to
a 60
88
to an
was a pretty big jump.
Yeah, it's a huge jump, and a lot of districts are very concerned, rightly so. we are very fortunate. Our kids perform very well.
Mhm.
Yeah, but we are keeping an eye on it because, like I said, we have 95%. We are leaving behind 5% that we have to work on.
I don't know. Oh. I'm not sure who should answer this, but this is just a question. So in getting the data for 3 through 8, not till August, the planning that y'all do for curriculum, looking at goals, outcomes, I know we do all of the benchmarks and things along the way. How do you think this is going to affect being ready so the kids hit the ground running when they return for the new school year and you don't even have the data yet?
One of the pieces that we've done some work on this year is our balanced assessment program. So really, it shouldn't be a surprise how our students perform. So we are monitoring that through the multi-tier system of support system we're rolling out and working with our staff on, and again, the balanced assessment. And we're bringing in, if you recall, part of the bond funds we had requested was for the MAP growth model, which will put some more screeners and benchmarks in there to monitor student progress over time.
So that's more a formality getting that in August. You'll already have
We
the map.
shouldn't, yeah, there should not be
Perfect.
surprises.
I was hoping for
Mhm.
that. Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's just going to be a change and we're going to get that information out again to our teachers and our parents as well, that we're accustomed to receiving those, either late in the spring, late in May or June.
I think this is a really good opportunity to listen to teacher voice too. Throughout this whole school year, they've been monitoring student progress, and they've been tracking their performance. They've been meeting with them. They know really their students the best. STARS 1 score and 1 A.
Mhm.
I just wanted to hear it.
That was my exact question, Ann. So good question. I'll just ask one more. Is that August delivery timeframe expected go forward, or would we expect after this initial year that we would get it earlier? Oh,
Once the accountability manual comes out in later, end of summer, it'll probably be more secure. Right now, these are really proposals. We're hoping-
Ideally, we'd love to have the accountability manual now. It's the rules of the game, but we don't receive it until our stores come. So, and as you can see the complexity with this, and I just want to commend Mary for the work that she leads the district with it in this particular area. So,
agree. It was very informative. Thank you.
okay. All right. Thank you.
All right, next item is item 11, presentation on Lovejoy ISD's math instructional framework.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to ask Kelly Cowan, our coordinator of math pre-K through 12, and if Aaron and Mary's been a part of this project too. If you recall, back in the fall, the district was awarded a math instructional framework grant awarded from TEA for approximately $80,000. A big part of that was to assist districts with really building philosophical approach of what we believe as a district on how we teach math and what the classroom math instruction should look like. And so we have partnered with the Meadows Foundation that has been working with our, it's a K through 12 team, vertical team of teachers and administrators that has resulted in building this framework. And I just want to point out too, just the process alone has been beneficial for the district as we move forward to not just looking at math, but other content areas or philosophically what we believe as a district on any of those particular areas. So I'm gonna, Kelly has been instrumental in leading this work with us and partnering with the agency, ensuring we get our reports turned in and bringing teachers around the table and gathering that feedback. So this was really created from a group of teacher leaders who believe in. We're very excited about our results and got a lot of good feedback from the agency and the Meadows Foundation as well too. So.
Well, good morning. I just wanted to make sure and have our culture right there because I really feel like this whole project was
having relationships, because we had pre-K through 12 teachers in the room, which was funny having our calculus teacher stress out over a third grade math problem. Just the conceptual part of it. We all learned together, we collaborated together, and we actually had a lot of fun doing math, which that can happen. And I think we have a good result in a final product for it. So on our next slide, you'll see the picture of, see everybody smiling doing math? This was our committee together. And like I said, we tried to include as many stakeholders as possible. We have elementary represented, intermediate, the middle school, the high school. We had GT, we had special ed, we had administrators at the campus level, and we had some district administrators together. And we all did 2 days of learning with the Meadow Centers to really talk about what does good math instruction look like? Not do what I think it looks like, not what Dr. Tinsley looks like, but like really research-based. And they called it ARBIES. So if I say that, I'm not talking about the sandwich. It's research-based instructional strategies. You know, education loves to have some good acronyms, right? So the acronyms was ARBIES is what we really had 2 days of learning about, which was just research-based in math instruction. So kind of like why a framework? Why is it important for us to have one? Well, really the most important is it increases an alignment between the curriculum instruction of like what's happening, you know, from campus to campus. It shouldn't be such a struggle when they leave from 5th grade, or I can count, I do math, 7th grade to 8th grade, 8th grade to 9th grade, that sort of thing. So this really will help align us. And it really does connect to the STAR redesign, because the STAR redesign really is just for us to see more of what our students know. It shouldn't be a surprise. And also professional development and coaching support. So when we go into a classroom, we all have the same mental model of what it looks like and how to coach the teacher. And they're not hearing one thing from me and then have, example, Mrs. Kraft go into a room and say something else. Like we'll be aligned in what we think good instruction is. And also when we're looking at professional development, who do I need to bring in when I see all of my teachers? Like, let's go back to the framework and see what we believe in, and then see if that's some professional development we should try to bring in. And really also to evaluate alignment of our instructional materials. That's going to be coming up next. But when we start looking at materials and teachers say that they need something, I want to give them what they need, but I also want to get them something that aligns to our framework. We're not just getting something to get it. This is because, yes, they do need this, and this aligns with our beliefs. And really just kind of making it, this was our ARBIES lessons, if you will. So what we said was really good for the research was balance of conceptual and procedural. And we really went to dive deep in what that exactly means. The depth of key concepts, coherence of key concepts, productive struggle. And on that 5th piece I really like is just leverage embedded assessments to drive our instruction. So really when we're taking these assessments, I mean, we can test kids all day long, but if we don't look at the data, there's just a waste of time. So we need to have some good assessments so we can make sure our instruction is doing what it needs to do. And I think, do you guys have it all in front of you?
Yeah, there's a
not, I would love
copy
to hand
of
it
the
to my
instructional framework. Yes, you should have a copy of that.
Together, we all created this and with all of the teachers you saw in the picture and got feedback. And so this is our final draft as of now, but just remember, it's always a working document. You know, we're always going to try to be on top of research, and if we need to change something, we'll change it. But this was what we kind of came up with, and I really like kind of the stakeholder actions too.
And forthcoming will be, we have our vertical literacy team working on a similar framework that Michelle Riddle is leading, and so we'll be bringing that forward as well. So, okay. Questions?
I'm like the talkative one today. I'm so sorry.
No, it's
I'm
okay.
just curious, your thoughts on learning gaps from COVID, specifically with math. You know, we all experience that in a different way. I had a high schooler with the camera pointed at the ceiling
I
during
know.
Algebra 2. So
Yes.
how are we catching kids up as far as all of that? Because
Well,
that's tricky, because it all builds.
It is very tricky. And if I knew the exact answer, I would be like, I'd set the school district. Yeah. But it's really impressive what our teachers do. They really are like coming in. When you guys asked that question about the STAR scores, like it should actually be 0 surprises. We have been looking at assessments already and kind of already plugging in gaps. And that's the nice thing about this was we were talking about coherence. And so even before COVID, like sometimes teachers would be like, they're just not getting this. And I was like, well, that's the first time they've ever seen it. Like they shouldn't get it yet, you know? And so it's really kind of just going back and saying, okay, being cognitive of, hey, what they missed. Like there's some data going through, like the kids who are in 6th grade during COVID are really kind of the furthest behind. And so you really kind of have to go in and plug those in. And that's what's nice about the vertical teams is we get to have those conversations of like, hey, this is what we got to, this is what we need to do. But if we can go in and plug in the holes as we go along and really use our time wisely, then they're doing great.
And it's been incredible to see the work of the teachers. It was interesting to watch high school with elementary, of the conceptual piece of not understanding the impact that that has in future years.
They were
So,
saying, we just did a simple division problem and she started it off and it was, I say simple, it was fractions. And all the math teachers, the high school and up were like, oh, you just multiply by reciprocal and they were done. They couldn't figure out like, why are they taking so long? And they're like, elementary. And then the elementary teachers really like explained it and did this. They were like, what? And their minds like blew. And one of them was like, so when my daughter gets to third grade, she's going to be doing this. I'm like, yeah, she's going to be doing this. And so, and that was nice too, just really, and that's kind of the nice part about me being vertical going and having campus to campus conversations is really saying, hey, they can do, this is what they do. And even, I'm not a master of every grade level, but when I go into there, I can like, I know bits and pieces to take back up to the high school or take back up to the middle school. So it's been really interesting. We had a really good time creating it, but I think it was a good product too.
any questions?
Thank you so much.
So item 12 is our presentation on K through 5 math instructional materials adoption.
Yes, I'm going to have Kelly stay up and Aaron as well. We shared several meetings ago that the timeline on the adoption process for our K-5 instructional materials, what's been nice is that we've had this framework to help guide that selection process as well. So Aaron and Kelly, again, have been instrumental. Our math vertical team has been involved in this process as well. So there's teacher voice at the table. So I'm going to have them take you through this and what would the recommendation that we are going to be moving forward for your approval at the April 24th board meeting.
All right, so this is just a reminder, this first slide, this is something that you've seen before. Of course, we always start with our standards, and then as a district, we create curriculum documents based on our standards. And then from there, we can then begin to choose an instructional resource. So today, we are bringing forward an instructional resource for our K-5 math classrooms that we would like to adopt. And this is our timeline. We started in January looking into this. We were hearing feedback from teachers that they felt like there were some gaps in the instructional materials for K-5 math. So Kelly and I really started to dig in to find out what those gaps were. So we found two resources that we thought could be good options, STEMscopes Math and Eureka Math. So in January, we presented those to teachers. In February, we gave them an opportunity. We had an adoption committee that was able to evaluate those two resources using a district rubric. So then in March, we had an opportunity for the community to come and provide feedback and have an opportunity to preview those materials. And we also got all of the data back from the rubrics. And so here we are in April, and Eureka Math TEKS Edition was clearly what the teachers felt would be able to best fit their needs and of course the students' needs. So that's a resource we're bringing forward today. And so just a little bit, and Kelly, you jump in on this as well, things that we found as we were looking into Eureka, why we felt it would be a good fit for Lovejoy. First of all, it aligned so well to our framework, which is why we created that framework to have a belief system to then choose a resource from. It has a balance of conceptual, procedural, and fluency skills. It values productive struggle, so it gives teachers strategies, and it also provides even some modeling of this is what a conversation could look like when you're having a conversation with a student and they're struggling. How can you turn that into productive struggle? It provides daily engagement in rigorous math instruction, which is one of our RBs that we just talked about, and then concepts connected across grade levels. And this is where we feel like is the biggest asset to Eureka Math is that it tells the story of math from K to fifth grade. And so really providing that alignment across grade levels is what we felt like was truly a strength of this resource.
I had one team ask if they could do a module, and did a module, and they came out, they're like, we don't really normally teach this in our grade level. And I was like, because it was in the previous grade level, we need to keep going and like streaming that along. And it was just like this aha moment of like,
we also like that it provides support for new teachers. So if you are a brand new teacher and you need to see what a good lesson looks like, then it has a kind of a transcript for you to follow. It's not required that you follow that, of course, but it's just a great model for any new teacher who's needing support in that area. And then, of course, embedded assessments are already there. Teachers spend a lot of times when they're working with their grade level teams creating assessments. And so then that's taking away time to actually dig into the data from the assessment. So now that piece has been taken off the table for them, and they have assessments that they can use, and now they can use their time more productively by actually analyzing and responding to that data. And so our next step will be to come back to you on April 24th and ask for approval to use this resource in all of our K-5 math classrooms.
And as of right now, there's not a charge for this resource. It's free. That could change, but the state is offering this as a no charge to districts right now. Until later. Yes, we have found that. Yes, that they'll come in.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
They had,
And our teachers have, as Aaron and Kelly have said, we've had several teachers using this in the classroom over the last, I guess since January, trying it out too. So.
It lines up, because we're gonna have to, change the order of our scope of for it to line up. A few modules lined up with where it should. And, yeah, it was just great conversations. They were like, oh my gosh, what we got to do today? We got to talk about data from our assessment versus trying to make sure we had a good assessment. And another reason I like it, I could talk it up all day, and I won't do that. But also, I just like the fact that I know now, like, we don't do campuses, our professor is like, hey, they're going to be doing the same. When you look at data, you can look at it and say, no, that they have the exact same assessment, not an assessment that they created and they created. Of course, I trust the teachers to tweak it if they need to do it or anything, but you know what I'm saying.
So on that same topic of vertical alignment, are there additional resources that would make sense to look at for secondary? I know this is elementary, but in the alignment or those courses, once you get to secondary, completely different.
That was actually part of our instructional materials inventory to analyze what we had as primary resources. We have not had a primary resource for K-5 math. We felt like that what we currently have is support, the teachers have what they need. Kelly, you want to elaborate on that?
I think it was very informative. I appreciate the thorough process that you went through to evaluate. I really liked hearing that the teachers had the opportunity to give their feedback. And I know we've talked a lot about their time and how we preserve that. And I'm really interested to hear about the exemplary lessons and the assessments, because I can see where that would save a lot of time. And the bridge between Hart and Pester is so important. So thank you for the information.
And of course, this will be part of our curriculum writing process. We kick that off the week after school. And we have teachers who are involved in the development of those. So it's great to have that we're going to have these primary resources now to ensure that they are embedded and accessible and streamline the planning process for our teachers as well.
All right, next up is item 13, presentation on our GT programming and GT advisory committee update.
I'm going to have to go back. Frederica, it's not in here. What's the best way to go back and do that? Yeah. So I'm going to ask Bree Smith to come up, our Director of Advanced Academics. It's the day of C&I today. A lot of great work's been going on.
Good morning, Board, President Owens, Ms. Cordell, and community. I'm glad to be here today. I know a lot of you recognize me as the AP and PSAT person, but I'm pleased to be here today to speak to GT programming and our GT Advisory Committee. Once the presentation comes up, you'll have the definition that I'm going to share with you for GT services. And that is our state definition. We do align with that. That really helps as we're looking at identification practices, as we're looking at the recommendations from TEA, and also, of course, what our neighboring districts are using for identification. When we identify a student for GT services, that student has a high capacity for learning or shows the potential for learning when compared to others of the same age, environment, or experience. In our district, of the 3 areas that can be identified, we identify for high performance and high capability, as well as excelling in a specific academic field. We do not currently identify GT services for leadership. That's really open to our entire district. We have so many students that are participating in leadership activities. It doesn't make a lot of sense to label that as a GT service because everything would be labeled as GT leadership.
Okay, I think we're there. Sorry about that. Here we go.
And I'm on the 3rd slide. Thank you.
The next one? Okay.
Yes,
sorry.
please. Thank you. For our services, we do emphasize differentiated instruction, and we utilize depth and complexity. You'll recognize some of those symbols over on the slideshow as the iconic prompts that were originally introduced by Sandra Kaplan and now are managed by J. Taylor Education. Our students from kindergarten through 12th grade are immersed in those icons. You may have senior students using some of these images. What they are really is just a way to get students talking beyond the surface level and really looking at topics from different angles. That leads us into that thinking and research, the communication piece. And we want to make sure that all students are practicing with recognizing good research and good research techniques, that they are practicing with communication. We very recently had our inaugural GT showcase, which you'll be seeing images throughout the presentation. And we also emphasize that project and product-based learning. You're going to see performance-based tasks again throughout the slideshow. That is part of the expectations for students receiving GT services as established by the Commissioner of Education. Again, this is our GT showcase, and you'll see students from 1st grade all the way through 6th grade sharing out their research and their learning. We had students that created games for special populations. We had students that researched cultures in relation to a novel study that they read in their classroom. We also had students that used the Texas Performance Standards projects, again, approved by the commissioner as a way to demonstrate learning, research, communication, and then again, those advanced level products and performances. You can see over on the right-hand side, there's a student with a bridge, and I don't have the picture of her standing on it, but it literally was strong enough to hold her standing on that bridge. Each of these projects represents students' passion and interest area. So you'll see a variety as you go throughout this evening. This was actually a far larger event than even we anticipated. This library down the hallway and then all the way down the C100 hall had students and families and community members coming to see what students had learned. For GT services in Lovejoy, we do test and identify students for services. Those services are available kindergarten through 12th grade, with kindergarten being tested in the second semester so that they get to learn how to do school first before we start testing them. The service time is commensurate with the age and the grade level of the students. So we have students that are going for 30 minutes at a time, 45 minutes at a time, and so forth through those elementary levels. We also have teachers that are providing extensions and enrichment, again, going back to that communication research, critical thinking piece for services. And then once students get to grades 5 and above, they're receiving subject-specific services. So as you saw in the pictures on the previous pages, those students were all working on something that was interdisciplinary. As we move up into those grade levels, the students that were looking at The Hobbit, I think you may have seen that one, that was a subject-specific course. We also celebrated GT Awareness Week last week, and this showcase was part of it. This is designated as the first week in April, and at the time of publication from the Texas Association for the Education of Gifted and Talented Students, there were 445,000 or so students identified for GT services in Texas. That number is now almost 454,000, with 29,000, almost 30,000 of those being in Collin County alone, and then over 800 here in Lovejoy. We're approaching 830 right now. Just to give you an idea, comparison-wise for where we are in the Metroplex, we're sitting at about 19.5% of our students identified for services. Our neighbors just to the south are at 14.5%, to the west at 13%, and then a little further down the road on 75 at 16%. We do have 2 proclamation resolutions that are currently going through the House, SCR 9 and HCR 8, which would make GT Awareness Week in the state of Texas be that first week in April for the next 10 years. It has cleared Senate and is in the House now. Again, some more pictures. Everybody got in on the fun for the showcase. You'll see Mr. Knight from Puster doing a demonstration with students. And then that picture on the right is actually a 3rd grade task that students did earlier in the year. And they were just so proud of their accomplishments. They asked me to store this in my office for the last 3 months. It is a city that the students planned. Each student in the class was assigned a role. So they might have been a physician, a city planner, a traffic engineer. They might have been a Parks and Recreation employee. Everybody had a part to play in designing the city, and they actually had to create that city, determine where things would go, where it would be that make the most sense, how they would conserve green space, where the hospitals will be. So that's students giving the tour of that task at the showcase. So that was over here, took up about half of the back of the library. Another thing that we started this year is the Gifted and Talented Advisory Committee. That committee met 4 times, with the last meeting being a combination of a special performance for the advisory board and then coming over to the showcase. That committee was formed with parent representatives from each campus, teacher representatives, administrative representatives from campuses, and then a representative from our SAGE committee as well, and then myself and Dr. Tinsley. We really focused in on that Lovejoy 2030, with strategy 7.32, really diving into what our families and community and our staff members are looking for as we are looking at programming, looking at services that we are offering, and where we have some needs that are yet to be met. We identified 3 main areas that we would look at throughout this year, looking at enrichment opportunities for our students, whether that be during the school day or outside of the school day, even during the summer, strengthening that bond between home and school communication, and then also resources and training for our families. That's always a big one. You know, what more can we do? What can you send home? What can you share with us? We did quite a few discovery tasks, information gathering, just feedback around the room. The top things that came up were more of the parent meet and greets, the casual coffees, so you can just come and go and ask your questions and get additional learning in brief spurts versus the longer time periods. Not directly related to GT services, but coming up again, and we've seen this in almost every committee meeting, is the request for partnerships with businesses. And I think that's something that our district's doing a really good job with. I think parents all across the district are going to be pleased with that. I mentioned the resources to send home to parents. The committee would like to see more long-term service projects and student presentations. And I really think we nailed that with the GT Showcase this year. We are hoping to expand that. We had lots of feedback from parents about how great it was to see everybody in one place. I had sent a follow-up email for our after action review with the staff members, and I got one back that was like, I can't wait for next year. It's going to be bigger. It's going to be better. And so they're already thinking about what's going to happen next year, and we're making those plans. So thank you very much. We appreciate your continued support. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
So Bree wears many hats in this position that she leads with our GT services, our advanced academics. We were at the high school yesterday working on AP and certifications for training for our teachers. So, and then the family involvement and student involvement opportunities. So I just want to thank her for her leadership. And aside from that, the testing, of leading our testing process that for AP and GT. So she does an incredible job in leading this work. So.
All right. Item 14 is our district child care K through 6 update.
So I shared at the last board meeting that we were looking at some partnerships options for our after-school care and our the days that we've designated as teacher planning days for community members and staff members that may be interested. Some of the challenges we've encountered have been that staffing and ensuring that we have enough staff to accommodate our parents. And we've had a wait list, it's a pretty significant wait list for just our after-school care for our K through 6th grade students. So Amanda Puckett, our coordinator of the Lovejoy Child Development Center, and then Erin Perkins, Director of Elementary Education and Early Childhood, have been working to come up with some solutions. And so what we are bringing forward to you today is a proposal, a consideration, which will hopefully move forward to the April 24th of partnering with a company called AlphaBest. So I'm going to hand it over to them to share the findings.
All right, so the reason we started to look into AlphaBest, one is it provides affordable childcare opportunities, first of all, for our families. And it can serve students in pre-K through 6th grade, which is what we already were serving. It also offers options for families on district professional development days and the extended planning days that we're going to be implementing for next year. It also addresses the staffing challenges like Dr. Tinsley mentioned, and we'll get into a little bit more about that in just a second. And then, of course, helps us maintain the revenue generating model that we already have in place. All right, so this is AlphaBest's mission. It's to partner with schools and families to engage children's minds, expand their horizons, and provide parents with a sense of security. And after spending a good bit of time with AlphaBest, one of the things that I really want to highlight in their mission statement there is that they truly do want to partner with the schools and the families that they serve. And that has been something really important to Amanda and I, that we work closely with them. We have high standards for our children here, and we want to make sure that they are rising to that challenge, and they very much are willing and capable, I feel like, to do that. They also want to be able to partner with the students' home campuses. So if there are things that are working for a student at their home campus, they want to be able to mirror that support here in their after-school program. So we're excited that they are willing and ready to do that. AlphaBest is a very reputable after-school program. You can see this is just a small sample of other districts that use AlphaBest, many in our area, and I've worked in previous districts that have used AlphaBest and had a great experience working with them. Some of the benefits that we want to highlight is, like Dr. Tinsley said, hopefully being able to reduce the wait list, and it would be great if we didn't have a wait list. So they would be able to increase our student enrollment compared to what we currently have enrolled. The great thing is we had the space for these kiddos, but we were just struggling to staff it. And so Amanda will talk in just a second about some staffing benefits that we will be able to have because of the use of AlphaBest. Also, they'll extend their hours of operation until 6:30 p.m. We were open till 6, so that's an extra 30 minutes that parents can take care of their needs before they pick up their kiddos. They also have the ability to provide flexible options for families. So if there's a family that only needs care for 2 days a week, 3 days a week, they can do that. They also can have drop-ins. So if you need care just for 1 day and it's unexpected, and you can provide, I think they allow up to 2 to 3 days notice, but they will definitely encourage drop-ins for their, and that is something that we just weren't able to manage with the amount of staff that we have. And then care is available on student holidays, which is especially helpful for those extended planning days that we're going to have. All right, and this is, I think, the piece that I am most excited about. We have a captive audience of kiddos here for 3 hours every afternoon, and we know that they're tired. They've been at school all day, but we want to capitalize on that time that we have with them. And because AlphaBest is an after-school program, that is what they focus on. They have a curriculum that provides enrichment opportunities for our kids in a really fun and engaging environment. You can see they have 4 units that they focus on throughout the school year. They have an arts and entertainment unit. They have a fitness and wellness, a STEM unit, and then world languages. And so for an hour a day, the kiddos are really engaged in some enriching activities that are led by the AlphaBest staff. All right, and let Amanda talk about staffing.
Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about staffing. I know we've talked about the wait list, just to give you an idea of what our wait list was this year. We had 44 on a wait list before the first day of school. So, we had parents that wanted to use our after-school program, but we didn't have the staff and the support needed to be able to accommodate those families. And then after that 44, we probably had 20 to 30 families that would reach out and say, I see there's a wait list. What would my weight be on the list? And I would say, well, you're 45th on the wait list. So they wouldn't fill out the wait list form because they were like, there's no way we're going to get down to the 46th person. So, we potentially could have had 60 on the wait list, and we accommodated about 70 this current year for our K through 6. Now, if we add our pre-K in there, then it was close to about 100 in our after-school program. So what they will be able to do is they kind of manage it, all the hiring, the recruiting, the retainment, the management of our staff, and they have just a larger pool of candidates that they can reach in different communities to say, hey, Lovejoy ISD is an option for you to be able to go work in Lovejoy ISD in the after-school program. So they also will be childcare licensed. So we are currently follow all the childcare regulation guidelines for our infants currently right now through our 6th grade, but they will also be licensed from the pre-K to the 6th grade. So just a little bit about a licensing piece. There are lots of requirements that fall under licensing, and they manage all of it. So all of the training, the continuing education that all of the after-school workers will need, the CPR, all of those things, they would manage that for us. So that talks a little bit about the training, the recruiting platforms, and then they, vet all the applicants, interview them. This is the piece that really I see a lot of value in. They provide what they call a site director. So there will be someone in leadership that will be there from the time that whatever their time is to be in until 6:30. So there will be someone that will be able to help manage any kind of parent concerns, student issues, if there was an emergency, which right now, when I leave at the end of the day, there is a time frame period that there is not necessarily like a leadership kind of point of contact person. So I really like that piece that they will add to it. And if we reach a certain number, then they will provide an assistant site director. So then they can have 2 points of lead in the evening hours. And then it invites all of our staff to work in the program as well. So one of our questions, we have a current after school staff that have worked with Lovejoy ISD for a very long time. So we wanted to make sure if they wanted to work in AlphaBest, would they be considered to continue employment with AlphaBest? The great piece is we will still also have our 18 months to 3-year-old after school program for our childcare piece that we still need after school support. So right now we're going to be able to take anyone that wants to continue to work in Lovejoy ISD and they'll be able to support in our after school needs from 18 to 3s, which really helps with now we'll be able to have adequate staff for those childcare needs for 18 to 3-year-olds.
And this was one of the areas that when we met with the AlphaBest team, just because we're not the only school district that's having problems with retention and recruitment, what were they doing differently to recruit? And they felt very confident that that was not going to be a problem to recruit staff, whether it's within the district or outside. They felt like they had a network that they had a pool of suitable applicants for that.
They utilize online recruiting platforms that I'm sure cost that we don't have resources to tap into. So.
And the neat piece about having the site director and potentially assistant site director is when we talk about that partnership, it would be like I would be in contact with that director, that assistant director, where I would still be talking and communicating to the campuses, transportation, and kind of bridging that gap. And so we have a true partnership, not just letting AlphaBest just kind of run and manage things on their own, that there would just be a good balance between the two. So our current fees for this school year, the registration fee was $50 and our monthly tuition was $300. And then we gave a 50% reduced rate for any Lovejoy ISD staff members. So if you look to the right of it, what we're projected right now, if we choose to go through with AlphaBest, is the registration fee can be $100. We can negotiate that if we feel like we want that number to come down a little bit, but $100 is pretty reasonable for a registration fee. And our monthly tuition would go up slightly by $20 to $320, but we feel that that's reasonable with the enrichment piece and just kind of the added extra staff that would be supporting the program. And then the student holidays and remote days would be $40 a day, which we think is a reasonable fee for care from, they said whatever we said it. It could be from 7 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. We could do 8 to 6:30, whatever we decide is where we can set our school day for those remote days. And then something that was really important to us is that we continue to offer staff at that 50% reduced tuition rate, and they will honor that. Okay, so this is just kind of what our projected revenue would be. So this year, currently, we're looking at making about $65,000, and then moving through AlphaBest, we would be if we had 140, which that was kind of like our number if we take what we currently have and our wait list and then our other interests and our pre-K. So I think we could definitely hit the 140, even potentially even a little higher than that. And I think that was at a revenue of $50,000.
Amanda and Aaron, what was the percentage that the AlphaBest we're looking at would give back?
12%.
12%. So considering the workload, some of the processes that will alleviate our staff, even though it's a little bit less, the benefits we felt like far outweigh than not. So.
Okay, and this is just a little bit of our timeline. We're here today just to kind of answer any questions you might have and give you the information, and then hopefully seek approval from the board on the 24th.
Any questions? I personally, and Anna has too, worked with, and I believe Aaron as Alphabest on the campus where I served as a principal. The partnership was incredible. They communicated with us well, and I was able to see, firsthand the care. They also were good about sometimes teachers, if they wanted to earn extra money. I mean, they hired some of my own teachers that were served on the campus. So the experience was very positive.
And one thing I want to note too, when we're looking at a registration standpoint, we have a lot of parents that are even reaching out now. When will we be able to register for the after-school program? I was on a wait list. I don't want to be on a wait list next year. We can move forward with registration once we get the contracts approval and contract signed. They'll move into registration well before the end of the school year, so parents can better plan for the upcoming school year, and they can pick their remote days and things like that. So then we don't have parents just the unknown throughout the summer. So.
I just want to thank Aaron and Amanda's work on this. And also, we just launched today is our summer enrichment camps guide. It's pretty impressive, the work that they put together, working with Kim Steiner on that. So we have combined all of our athletic camps, fine arts camps, and enrichment camps for our students in one location. So we're already getting some registrations rolling in. So it was live today at 9 o'clock. So thank you.
One question, with this outsourced service, basically, these are going to be non-district employees. They still have to go through a process similar for thinking about safety and security.
Yes.
I'm sure that's all part of it.
Right. Right. And there are some security systems that they use, and we will be working with our security department as well to ensure that they're following our very same procedures.
And with childcare licensing, all of our employees are actually double FBI background checked, if you think about it. So through childcare licensing, you have to be FBI background checked. And then for being a Lovejoy ISD employee, they also have to be the TEA FBI background check. So a lot of our current employees have 2 background checks that we require of them, but with childcare licensing, there's one, and it's actually more extensive. It's even more extensive than what I've heard, the TEA one. So we have that, we have the CPR, and then all employees of a child regulated job has to do 24 continuing education hours a year with certain standards on child development, safety, security, things like that.
All right. No other questions. We'll move on to item 15, which is a presentation on our STEM Festival.
Yes, this is just a quick reminder. We've got this coming up in a few weeks, and excited about hosting again at the high school. And we have some new activities for our kiddos and some representatives that you're going to see a little bit of a preview of what's going to be going on this summer in the enrichment camp. So that's coming up Saturday, April 29th. And if anyone's interested in volunteering, we have a lot of volunteers that we rely on to help support this event. So Cindy Bronson is our coordinator for pre-K-12 science that leads this up. So.
All right. Thank you for that update. And item 16, safety and security update, Mr. Parker.
Thank you. Good morning. I wanted to give the board and our community an update on where we are with some different safety and security items as we've done throughout the year. The first one is a safety and security audit, which we will conduct over the next month to month and a half. This audit is required every 3 years for each and every school district in the state to conduct. Ours is going to be due, and a report will be given to you guys as the board in September to share with you the findings of this audit. We have the option of doing an external audit and have an auditor come in, or we can do an internal audit and use the Texas School Safety Center audit toolkit to conduct this audit. We've chosen to go this route, do it internally. So we are putting together an audit team that will consist of community members, staff members who will visit each, not just campus, but each facility in our district, such as transportation, the red building, to determine where how safe our facilities are. And that will be determined through interviews with teachers, interviews with different staff members, We'll have, of course, safety checks on the different campuses to determine how safe our buildings are throughout the course of a day. So again, that'll be performed in May. We will start putting the reports together over the summer and then have those ready to you probably by the September regular board meeting. Last summer, we conducted a reunification event, if you'll remember. We had hoped to get 200 volunteers to volunteer for this event. Thank goodness we only had 30 because we didn't realize how logistically challenging this would be without ever going through it prior to. So we learned a lot in that reunification event. If you'll remember, we posed this as a gas leak at Hart Elementary School. We had about 30 students that we relocated. We got out of the building, relocated through our transportation system over to the indoor facility, used that as our reunification location. And then we sent out communication to those parents and then had them come through to pick up, and we reunified them at the indoor facility. This year, we're going to take a little bit different of approach. We still want to have a reunification event or a security emergency event. This time, we're going to do it as a tabletop event. We've invited Fairview Fire, Fairview Police, Collin County Sheriff, and Lucas Fire to join us. And they have all agreed to be there. And the reason is when we have an event, such a potential event, and let's just use the term active shooter. If we have an active shooter event on one of our campuses, all of those organizations are going to be responding to that event. And we don't want, we want to have had training with all of these organizations working together, find out what their roles are, who takes charge. And then if you'll look at the tables up on this map on the screen, these are all of the different, I guess, areas that we have to have planned for in an event such as this. And so not only will we have a tabletop event, we'll also have the, if you will, sub-events. So there'll be sub-tabletop events, if you will, to where people will break off from the main tabletop exercise, and they will go and hold their own exercise, such as an incident command exercise. As you can imagine, if we had a major event in the district, we would have a communications group who would have to put communication out to whether it be media outlets or just community communication. We will have those people who are putting together communication for this exercise. So there's all different types of areas that we have to address, and this will allow us to see how those areas work together, who's responsible for those different areas, and making sure that we have the 10,000-foot view. As good as last year's event was, the only lens that you got to look through was whatever area you were working with. This one, you'll see how all of them work together, which we think will give us a much better view of what we do well, what we need to do better, and areas that we can address that might need our attention. All of you guys will have an invite to this on June 8th, and it'll occur in the Lovejoy Elementary or Lovejoy Child Development Center gym. We'd love for you to come and see that. So we expect this to be a very beneficial exercise. Finally, as in years past, we're going to be offering Stop the Bleed trainings coming up over the next month. They'll be offered to our middle school and high school students. Our middle school students will do it just as we have in the past. They sign up. Their parents can sign them up. Middle school students don't sign up for stuff like this. Their parents sign them up, and they tell their parent, they tell their child, you're going to go to this. They go and they go to the training, which has been extremely beneficial. We have typically between, 20 to 30 middle school students who show up at each one of these, which is a great number. But all of our freshmen go through this training, assuming their parents are okay with it. We do this through their health classes and leadership classes. So for their health requirement, they either take a health class or they take a health science class, which is a freshman level class as well. And then the other half of that class is the leadership class. So all of them will be signed up. Our marshals will take them through the Stop the Bleed training. And so if you can imagine, our class is probably, 350 to 375 students. To have that many students, plus all of our sophomores from last year trained as well, to have half of the high school trained in Stop the Bleed is a really incredible resource for us. And it's just a force multiplier on being able to address an emergency if it may arise. So it's I can't thank the marshals enough and everybody else who's a part of that for getting our students trained. Any questions? Oh, I'm sorry. The last one. Just a recap of the fentanyl factor presentation. If there are any community members who would like to see this, who were not able to attend the fentanyl factor presentation that was on Wednesday, the 29th of March, you can go on YouTube and just search fentanyl factor and the video will pop up. It's an extremely captivating, it's an extremely impactful video if you've not seen it. But the fentanyl factor presentation that we had, we showed the video and then we had a panel discussion with some local experts, if you will, or professionals in that field. We had 135 community members that RSVP'd, and it was from the people who travel around doing this panel presentation. They said it was the best turnout that they've had. And that doesn't surprise me because when we ask parents to come and be a part of things in our community, they show up. And there were kids who I recognized there. They were elementary school kids all the way up to, of course, high school age students. And it was really eye-opening, the amount of impactful information they were able to share that it was real information that's not sugar-coated, that's not, doesn't make you feel good. They gave us the real information and it was extremely impactful. I know Mr. Bobo was there and I hope that he felt the same way. We now have, they provided us some doses of Narcan, which is the drug that's used to, that's given to anybody who overdoses on fentanyl. We have doses of that at now the high school, the middle school, and I didn't put it on here, but it's also at Sloan Creek. And we will continue to get more, we'll get more doses of that we can have more throughout the district. So we're really fortunate because it's extremely hard to get right now. Any questions? Great. Of course.
One thing I'd make you aware of is that Lovejoy ISD representatives from our representatives that like to represent us aren't necessarily representing our or and it's important. The things in fact being presented, I haven't had any articulation of how that's public education vouchers to repurposing school funds into budget surpluses, putting them in other places other than back to schools, to state funding and some things that we could be even more proactive on. Those things just are not happening. And so we need representation of the local raise awareness about that, and through that awareness, accountability. So we're looking forward to meeting and talking and listening and hopefully having them listen as well. So that's my only real announcement today, is to let you know that we are looking forward to that. Hopefully we'll have some kind of update for you at our event. So everyone has a great day. We'll be